I am Trish Allan. I am National Coordinator for UK Smart Recovery in Scotland. Please don't be fooled by my accent. I am born, or was born in Scotland. I am Scottish. I am a fifer. For any of you that know Scotland, there's some fifers. So just didn't grow up there, hence the accent. So I have been in post now for just over a year. I've been involved with Smart Recovery, though, for about 3 years, so really quite passionate about what we're doing, where we're going. I'm a little bit daunted thinking, I'm loving the idea of a smart meeting out there, but please don't ask me to facilitate it, right? Okay. Okay. So really, for me, my main thing was about who's who with Smart Recovery in Scotland. It kind of came to the UK, so most of you will already know all this back history. It came to the UK and was in HMP Inverness. And they really did get it, and they've really embraced that and continued it within Scotland. So it was kind of who's who in terms of who's doing what, where are we going with Smart, what's happening with Smart, what has happened from when it went into Inverness and to then all into the different areas around rural areas, as Lee says. And for anybody that knows me, where am I? Predominantly, normally, I'm lost somewhere in a rural location. But I needed to kind of navigate and understand Scotland's relationship with UK Smart Recovery. And I think there have been some difficult times that people will be aware or unaware of. So it was kind of trying to go through all of that and see what's happening, how smart is Scotland. And I think Scotland's very smart, very, very smart. So I'm loving that. And I was truly fortunate to inherit a really positive network of smart meetings across the whole of Scotland, really. So that made my job a lot easier. What had also happened was that there was a really well-established network with our government-funded alcohol and drug partnerships. So that made my life easier to find out who's who. So rather than having this massive network of lots of little meetings, I was able to go to some key people and say, tell me what's going on in your area, and help me not get lost, mostly. But we had this really good connection between the partnership that I think everybody gets, that we support one another as peers in whatever way that is, and the mutual aid that we have. But we're also really, really privileged, I think, to have such good links with partnerships, and to have that with services that can kind of embed it and act as the champions, and to facilitate those community meetings, and to keep bringing in more peers, and to keep doing that is just, that's kind of where I was with that. So I continued to build those connections, renew agreements with the commissioners, look at independently supported services, so those that were out with of our commissioners. The family and friends meetings, they did a pilot just before I joined, so there was a little network of family and friends meetings. So those seem to be slow but growing, so we're budding and growing within that. And then we had this really positive network of just really good relationships. And I think probably having met Joe today and had a really brief chat with him, the Scottish prison system and the services that are within that totally are smart. They are really embracing that now and saying, let's do this. Let's continue what came to HMP Inverness, and let's get on with it. So we've got 9 out of the 16 prisoners working with us, which is really good. So we can kind of build on that. I have been talking to, I can see her face somewhere. I can see Natalie. Yes, I can see Natalie. So there is another prison in Glasgow that hopefully we'll be talking to soon. So that's good. So we have 14 alcohol and drug partnerships in agreements with us, and only 18 to go. That is Scotland, for those of you that don't recognise the map. So that's our country, our patch. So we do quite well with that. Dave had this for England, and this is Scotland's one, which I think has, as you can see, was quite heavily saturated by the partnerships. The closed meetings are in the prisons predominantly, or DTTO, drug testing and treatment orders. I've never known anyone tip up at the prison and say, let me in, I want to come to your smart meeting. It's not kind of happened yet. But for me coming into post, there was that whole saturation of the partnership and where are we going. So where are our peers was kind of, I'm loving all this stuff that I've inherited, but what's going on with our peers? Where are they? I know they're there. Having worked within Scotland for the last 8 years, I know that the people are there. I know that people are going to SMART. They're very energised by that. So where was the meetings? And I think, as you've already heard from my esteemed colleagues, I'm like, oh, I'm going to repeat myself slightly. There was this availability of training. And I think everybody gets the online training. We can see that. We can go through that. We kind of feel like we know people through watching those videos, but it's not always accessible to everybody, especially within the prison. Anybody from the prisons, there are lots of security issues around us taking in media stuff. So there was these barriers, and then thought, okay, so how do I embrace that change, really? And what do I do about listening to peers, listening to the feedback? Where can we go with it? What can we do with it? There are already models available. The training was available within Wales. So it's like, okay, individuals are wanting this. People want this. They really want to kind of do it, but need just a little bit more, and that's the face-to-face training. So I think in doing that, it's been something, for me, training with peers. I have kind of slightly differently to Lee. I've had mixed training sessions with peers and champions, and that works really well in terms of really putting recovery and mutual aid on the agenda. So if you have any champions that are within services and saying, I don't know, do we talk about recovery assessments? Actually, yeah, you do. So there's that whole kind of talk to the people that are there, work with the peers, do the training together, and then you get that really positive energy back. So that was one of the things that we kind of did to overcome some of those barriers, to start looking, to do the practice sessions, talking to other people about actually facilitating a meeting, so doing it. You know, it's okay to do the online training, but oh my goodness, I need to stand up here and talk in front of all my peers. Am I going to be able to do that? So actually doing some of those supported learning has just been amazing. So that's some of the feedback that I'm just going to leave up there for you to read, because you really don't need me to read that out to you. One of the things that in doing the training, what came through quite clearly from the prison system was about prisoners wanting to be trained. So for those of you that are familiar with it, this is not the Inside Out program. This was actually training prisoners to be SMART facilitators, and to then start taking the meetings away from the officers and to have their own meetings going on. So they would then be saying, okay, the officers might need to be somewhere in the vicinity, but they don't actually need to be in on our meeting. We can start to do that ourselves. And that's kind of what happened in December. My colleague, who is also here, my kind of right-hand woman, I've been calling her this week, Christine Graham, and I went into, we went into Addywell, HMP Addywell, and trained a group of prisoners to become facilitators. And it was just amazing. It was amazing to actually get across those barriers of being able to go into the prison, because it's not that easy to get into prison legally. So kind of, in terms of letting us go in across the gates, it kind of become one of my highlights, really. So it kind of comes on there. That to develop this model of going into the prisons, training prisoners, and developing this graduation, and celebrating the fact that people have done this. You know, it's a lot of information that you get within that training session. Any of you, and there are lots of us in the room that have done it, you are saturated with all this knowledge that people have put together. That's quite tough going. So I think we ought to really celebrate that. And so we kind of have this graduation. This is us in Addywell. So we appeared in the Gallery magazine. So this was our Magnificent 7. So this was them graduating. There was 10 that were nominated and 7 that became full facilitators. So you're welcome to see any of this. This is more graduations. And then another highlight for me, if you want to talk about prison, I'll talk all day long, but I have my 1-minute warning, so I better kind of wind up. We also had been part of what was the Recovery Olympics. Now, being in Scotland, it wasn't quite Rio, right? I'm not going to lie, it rained, right? But we had a really good time. Some of that team are here, and they got bronze medals. So it was really, really good that they did that. I was also involved in the recovery walk. I'd like you to see the old and new faces. So for any of you that do know, that was my predecessor, Jarden, the old SMART team. So they were there last year. And then this is where I'm going to. On Saturday, we will be walking at the Kelpies, and that's our Scottish walk for this year. So that's kind of me in a very brief summary, but I thank you very much, Helen. Thank you.